Today we're going to be doing another reading of Taken Abroad by Lauren Armstrong. And we're going to continue from where we left off last night. We're at chapter 11. And this is after Aaron had just killed a few people. So this is his hill turn, so to speak. So let's continue with where we left off. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of weak coffee, and let's delve into this. Chapter 11. When Aaron pulled in the driveway, he could see Brooke doing dishes through the kitchen window. He had put himself through a lot this morning, and the blood would show easily. If Brooke saw the blood on his shirt, he'd have to answer questions about it. He didn't know how he could avoid it, though. He took a deep breath and scrambled his brains for an excuse for the blood and a knife wound on his ribs. He would tell her they'd been out scouting for another place to go hunting. Fell down the hill and his knife came out of the sheath and sliced him when he was tumbling down the hill. Aaron smiled slightly as his excuse, then proceeded to the house. Brooke saw Aaron coming from the kitchen window when she was washing dishes. She braced herself to ask him where he had been for half the night last night and all morning. She had a strange feeling of something going on that maybe she shouldn't ask questions about. But she knew that was just the inner way to protect herself, and an unhealthy way to be. She had to confront him about it. Aaron walked in the door and could immediately tell that Brooke was upset with him. He could feel the coldness coming from her and it worried him. He walked over to her and noticed the trail of dirt coming off his boots. He ignored it and continued on towards Brooke. He stepped up next to her and gave her a kiss on the cheek, and he got nervous when she didn't return it and didn't say anything to him. "Honey, are you alright?" Aaron asked. "No," Brooke returned sharply. Aaron was taken aback by the irritated tone in Brooke's voice and began to grow more nervous. "What's wrong?" he asked with growing interest. What's wrong is that you left early this morning without leaving a note to tell me where you're going and when you'd be back. I want to know what's going on," Brooke demanded. "Nothing is going on," I replied. "I just felt like going out for a drive because I woke up from a bad dream and didn't want to wake you in trouble." "So you stayed away all morning?" Brooke said, disbelieving. "I went out looking for another place to go hunting, too. I wasn't doing anything wrong," Aaron lied. Brooke was about to yell out again when she suddenly noticed blood all over Aaron's shirt. "Oh my god, Aaron, you're bleeding. Bad," she exclaimed in fright. "That's alright. I fixed it once. It just needs a new bandage on it," Aaron said calmly. "What happened?" Brooke asked as she began moving straight to remove the bandage, looking at his wound. "I fell down the hill. My knife came out the sheath and cut me as I was falling," Aaron recited his planned explanation. Brooke gave an apologetic look before cleaning his wound, and her eyes began to tear up. Aaron saw that she was about to cry. "Don't cry, honey. You had every reason to be upset. I'm sorry I didn't write you a note before I left," Aaron said as he gave Brooke a kiss. Aaron lost himself in thought as Brooke quietly cleaned his wound. He couldn't believe how he'd gotten away with it. He barely got away with it, but he did. He had almost lost Amber, and now Brooke had questioned him about his absence this morning. He'd have to be more careful in the future. It was then that Aaron realized that he's no longer something he could avoid. The things that happened to him in Iraq that made him the man he is today. That Aaron had once been taken abroad, he is no longer safe to be in population. The There, I'll probably have to change it again tonight before we go to bed, Aaron Brooke told Aaron. Aaron just sat there with his arms still up in the air, lost in thought, not hearing anything Brooke had said. "Aaron," Brooke spoke again, but failed to get Aaron's attention. "Aaron," she spoke louder. Aaron snapped out of it and turned his attention to Brooke. "What?" he yelled. Brooke was startled, stepped back at the tone of Aaron's voice and looked in his eyes. For the first time since she'd known Aaron, she felt threatened and worried. I just said that your balance has changed." She didn't tell him again that it would need to be changed again that night for bed because something told her that he may not be there that night. Aaron looked down at his new bandage, put his shirt back down, and got up and left. He had to leave. If he didn't, his family would be in danger. He turned to look at Brooke, shook his head, and walked out the door towards the car. "Aaron," Brooke spoke quietly. "Aaron," she said louder as she ran out the door after him. She caught up to him and stopped him from walking by, standing in front of him. "Where are you going?" she asked desperately. "I have to leave, Brooke. I don't know what's going on with me, but I'm changing. I don't feel safe for me to be around you and Trevor right now," Aaron explained. "We can make it all right. If you go for intense therapy again, it will help. I don't want you to leave," Brooke said desperately. She grabbed Aaron's arm while he tried to walk past her. Aaron turned around, slapped Brooke's face hard, making her fall to the ground. She looked at him in shock as an evil look came upon his face again. "Oh, I'm going for intense therapy again, but this time it'll be me that gives the intense therapy," he said in a threatening tone. Brooke sat with her hand on her cheek and tears welling up in her eyes as she watched Aaron get into his car and drive away. She saw her life and love slipping away, the love that she would never end. She the love she thought would never end was coming to an end. She knew that Aaron had been acting differently lately, but she didn't realize just how different he had become. She didn't think he was cheating on her with another woman, but she couldn't explain what he was doing when he left the house in the middle of the night. Was he really out looking for a new place to hunt? Questions became a puzzle that she couldn't find the answers to fit. And what did he mean when he said he'd be the one to give the intense therapy? Nothing made sense to her. She collected herself, then picked herself off the ground and headed into the house, began packing Aaron's clothes, crying the whole time. Once she had them packed, she placed them outside so Aaron wouldn't have to come inside to get them. After that was done, she changed the lock on the door and then called Aaron's mom and let her know what happened. She offered to come over and be with Brooke, but Brooke felt like being alone with Trevor for a night. She had a lot of thinking to do. After she got Trevor in the bed and asleep, she turned on the evening news. They began with a story about a lady missing from the night before. Her car is still parked at her work, but she was nowhere to be found. Then they moved to the guy who's missing from the car that went off the road. Brooke watched the news up to the weather report, then retired to bed. She lay in bed for 2 hours with her eyes closed, not being able to fall asleep. Her eyes opened quickly as she remembered back to the news report of the missing lady with the car still in the parking lot at work. "No," Brooke said out loud to herself. "Aaron's been acting different lately, but he wouldn't do anything like that." Her mind began to fill with doubt as she recalled the look in his eyes earlier that day and the way he hit her. He had never hit her before. He had never gotten mad at her before. Tears began to fall from her eyes again. And she remembered that man Aaron was when she married him. She wiped her eyes and inside she had to face reality. Aaron was no longer the man she married, and she no longer knew what he was capable of doing. Should she call her mother-in-law and tell the thoughts that was running through her head? No, because Aaron's mother would only tell her that it wasn't possible because he was her son. Brooke got up from bed and hesitated as she reached for the phone. She pulled her hand back as she took a deep breath to pull up the courage. After letting out the air, she relaxed her shoulders and watched for the phone. She dialed the local police station. Aaron drove to his psychiatrist's house parked to the side of the road, watched the house, and began thinking about sessions he had with the psychiatrist. The way he tried to turn Aaron's thoughts around so that Aaron could forget the enemies in Iraq. Aaron didn't want to forget the enemies in Iraq. He wanted to kill them all. In the time he'd been skipping going to his therapy sessions, he resented the psychiatrist for trying to take his thoughts away from him. He no longer gave second thoughts to anything he was doing. He no longer felt the guilt, only the urge and the need to kill the enemy. It didn't matter that it wasn't really an enemy, for in Aaron's eyes, any abnormal thought about someone made them the enemy. Aaron waited patiently and smoked a cigarette as he watched the lights of the house go out by 9 o'clock p.m. He waited another hour, then made his move, walking calmly across the paved road. He made his way up to the center of the long drive to the front door, only to find it locked. He had no problem picking the lock, even though he had to work by moonlight. He slowly opened the big door and stepped inside. After quietly closing the door behind him, he began moving towards the staircase. He placed his foot on the first step and hoped none of the steps would creak on the way up. In the quiet of the house, Aaron felt he could hear his own heartbeat. His anxiety was growing, a rush of adrenaline excited him as he thought about the outcome before he was able to reach the second step. The telephone rang. Aaron froze in his position. When he heard the psychiatrist's voice answer the phone call, he listened closely as he heard the psychiatrist talking. Dr. Jeffs woke up irritated at the phone ringing at such a late hour. He slowly reached over and turned the lamp on next to his bed and picked up the phone. Hello? Dr. Jeffs answered groggily. Hello, is this Dr. Jeffs? The voice on the other end of the line asked. Yes, Dr. Jeffs. Dr. Jeffs answered. Who is this? This is Officer Randall in the Bloomington Police Department. Do you have a patient by the name of Aaron Johnson? Dr. Jeffs heard some sort of urgency in the officer's voice. Yes, I do. What's this all about, officer? His wife called there, and she believes that Aaron's gone crazy and is hunting you down. She said he'd been acting strange lately and that he hadn't been going to his appointments with you. She believes that he's very dangerous, Officer Randall finished. Aaron Johnson's wife calls you? Dr. Jeffs asked. Yes, sir. She's worried that he's probably in your area now. Would you like for us to send an officer to patrol your area? He asked Dr. Jeffs. No, I don't think that'll be all necessary, the doctor replied. Okay, well, I do recommend that you check your locks on your doors before going to bed. If you find a need, if you need us, then please don't hesitate to call Officer Randall urged. Thank you. Dr. Jeffs hung the phone up and told his wife what was going on, then decided to go up, check the locks on all doors in the house. Closing the bedroom door behind him, Dr. Jeffs moved sleepily towards the stairs, the darkness surrounding him, stepping heavily down the stairs. He flipped the light switch to the on position when he reached the bottom. There's no way he could have known that Aaron was waiting for him to turn the light on. He felt the sharp pain slicing upward from his abdomen and into his heart as he tried to focus his unwavering eyes on Aaron, then looked down at the knife that Aaron had forced into him. The blood began to flow in a small stream from his mouth, and his knees began to falter as the light in the room began to grow dim. Aaron removed the knife from Dr. Jeffs and caught him as he was falling into position over his shoulder. Shit. Sorry, I had a sneeze and I didn't want to blow anyone's eardrums out. Where was I? Aaron removed the knife from Dr. Jeffs and caught him as he was falling to position him over his shoulder. He adjusted the now dead psychiatrist and stumbled with the weight to the door and found his way to his car. He opened the trunk to his car and unloaded the psychiatrist's side. After closing the trunk, he got into the driver's seat and drove off towards his personal burying grounds, the woods. Aaron thought about the psychiatrist's conversation on the phone with the policeman. There's only one way they could have known. He heard the doctor say Aaron's wife. He couldn't believe it. How could she betray him like this? He never would have believed that she would become the enemy. But now she has, and Aaron has to take care of that. Wife or no wife, the enemy must die. When Aaron got to his personal cemetery, he was exhausted. He flopped the dead psychiatrist from his shoulder onto the ground to head the previous victim, then lay down at the foot of the nearest tree and fell fast asleep. He awoke a few hours later to find it still dark and now began to rain lightly. He decided he had better get the grave dug and the body buried before it rained too much. All the time he was digging, his thoughts kept going back to the conversation the psychiatrist had with the policeman over the phone and mentioning Aaron's wife. That made Aaron mad and more determined that Brooke must pay for her betrayal. After he had the body buried, he plunged a small American flag onto the ground at the head of the grave and began the journey back to his car. It is almost daylight now, and he would be taking a big risk going to his and Brooke's house right now to make Brooke pay. He'd be better to wait until tonight when it was dark again. Until then, he parked his car in an empty drive, just down the road from where he was now, and catch up on some sleep. So that was chapter 11. We're about to reach the next chapter. I'm going to stop this stream currently, and we will begin another one for the final chapter of this masterpiece.